I don't know. I printed one. I'll leave it here.
Okay.
So I'm going to call it to order and do acceptance of the minutes first. Oh, is this screen not on? Right, but so how will I know if I'm in the right spot? I mean, I guess I am.
If you don't have a quorum tonight, does that mean I'm still on the board?
We're going to count the people online too. We will have a quorum because as long as you're on board, I'm president. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25. Okay, I think we're going to get started. So I'd like to start by calling to order the 2022, I should look for a clue. Can I start now? Are we online? Okay. Realize it. So once again, I'd like to call the meeting to order. We are officially beginning the 2022 annual meeting. Oh, I guess I'll take this off while I talk. Couple of housekeeping items. First off, for those of you in the room, I want to make sure everyone has a chance to see we have Rabbi Herber in person and Mayrav. This is her first annual meeting. She is hitting the year mark in just about a month, and if you haven't met her yet, she is here. We also have Ariane here, who is in charge of finance. And you can clap for that too, because she is awesome. Couple of housekeeping items. For those of you who are online, please write your name in the chat. If there are two of you watching, write both names in the chat It's important that we know who was part of this and that we had the numbers. Also, throughout the evening, voting is open. It is online, so if you are at home, they will be putting the link in the chat. You can also find it online at our website. And for those of you in the room, if you haven't voted yet, you can go on your phone and find the link on the website. And I'll be reminding you of that again. That's what it says I'm supposed to do. So the first thing we are going to do is, and I didn't introduce myself. I'm Elise Wagner, soon to be immediate past president. Sorry, it's been a day. So the acceptance of the 2021 annual meeting minutes. These were online where you registered to come, where you go online to vote. They are also up top outside for those of you in person. So, for those of you who remember 2021 annual meeting, this was the one, it was a long time ago. We spoke a lot about Nadine as it was her final meeting. Maybe this rings a bell for people. Like to start by asking, is there anyone who would like to make a motion to approve the 2021 annual meeting minutes? Okay, Patty Wilner. For our note taker, I'll repeat. Would someone like to second that? Zane Brown. Okay, thank you. Any discussion on the 2021 meeting minutes? Okay. Seeing none, do we vote on these on the ballot or do we vote for this out loud? Shoot, I don't remember. Was this on the ballot? Oh, I think I did that all wrong because maybe it's just on the ballot. No, it's just in case. All those in favor of approving the 2021 meeting minutes say aye. Aye. All opposed? Abstentions? And go ahead and put your vote in the chat online in case it's not on the ballot. See, you're really glad that I'm the outgoing president because clearly I don't have it together anymore. Next up, I would like to invite Rabbi Herber, who will be sharing a Devar Torah with us.
Good evening, everyone. This is my third annual meeting at Herzl-Ner Talmid, the first in person. So I am really, really delighted to be here with all of you. Before I share Devar Torah, I want to share a warning. The New York Rangers are playing Game 3 this evening against the Carolina Hurricanes. And the game is still on. If anybody here intimates in any way, makes a comment, and Zane, I'm thinking about you in particular, I will initiate the process for cherem. So I don't want to hear any score or any kind of hint about what's transpiring now, because I'm going to watch it on the DVR when I get back. Now for the Devar. This week's Parashah Bechukotai is kind of an add-on. It's usually read with the previous Parashah Bahar, but this year the two were split. And I'm glad they're split because a rabbi couldn't ask for a better parashah to share Devar Torah about at an annual meeting than Bechukotai. Because Bechukotai talks about vows, gifts, and dues that are to be paid by the Israelites. And that's so much of what happens at the annual meeting. We talk about, not exclusively, but in at length about the finances of the congregation. Now I want to zero in on one particular aspect of the parashah. It's really interesting. When we talk about the Avot, the patriarchs, how do we usually refer to them? Avraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov. But God says that when God punishes the Israelites when they sin, and he moves them to a land of their enemies, he reassures that he won't forget them. V'zacharti et briti Yaakov, v'zacharti et briti Yitzchak, v'zacharti briti Avraham. The order is in reverse. Why is the order in reverse when it's always the other way around? Because the Sifra tells us that it would be enough for Yaakov, the third of the Avot, to redeem the Israelites and renew the Brit with God, just him himself. But if for some reason he was insufficient, then there's Isaac. And then there's Avraham. Tonight we are thanking and expressing our gratitude, and more importantly, legally, we are discharging members of the Board of Trustees and officers, and we are installing new leadership for our congregation. And regardless of whether that leader of our congregation is the president or the treasurer or the recording secretary or a member of the board with a one-year term, everyone has the opportunity to make a real difference, to give a gift of leadership, to pay one's dues. And if you're not in the leadership, if you're just a congregant, you also, just like Yaakov, you also can make your difference in the life of our congregation by helping to make sure there's a minyan, by showing up to lend a hand at a program, by filling a seat during services. These are all vital aspects of congregational life, and they go to the heart of what it means to be a part of a brit, a part of a covenant. We are all here in covenantal relationship, and we can all present our gifts, our tithes. I'm looking at Ariane, our dues, to make sure that HNT is a thriving and wonderful and dynamic congregation. Hope you enjoy the rest of the meeting. And remember, no score. Don't tell me the score, or you'll be in trouble. I don't want to know the score.
Thank you, Rabbi Herber. And thank you for those out there online checking me. We did the right thing by accepting the minutes the way we did. So next up, we have the financial report and presentation of the budget, and I am pleased to ask Jeff Packer to come up here and join us for that. Ariane will also be on hand for questions, as will I. And one more time for those who missed the beginning, if you are online, please put your name in the chat. If you are online with someone else, make sure you both put your name in the chat, and you can vote at any time, either from the website. If you're here, you could do it on your phone, still from the website. I'll let you know towards the end of the meeting when voting is closing.
People over here see the screen? Okay. Hi, I'm Jeff Packer. I'm treasurer here at HNT. I'm excited to talk about next year's budget and talk a little bit about this past year, sort of the financial status. So if we can go to the next slide. There we go. So as far as our current status, COVID's been quite challenging, but we've done really well. We've underrun the current budget while adapting to the COVID changes. We've been open, we've been restricted, we're back to open. So that's been a key success point, I think, is that we have shown a lot of flexibility and adaptability, and at the same time been very financially responsible and have actually underrun the current budget. Some of the other successes this year, we've brought on board a new executive director. We mentioned Marav coming up on a year. I can't think of a more challenging environment than coming in a global pandemic and being expected to hit the ground running. And you did an amazing job, and just so thrilled that you're here, so thank you. One of the things also we did this past year was Shul Cloud implementation. You should have all seen the emails about that. Just to kind of tell you the situation we were in before, we had to maintain our own IT infrastructure, a server rack for the prior system, and it was, just quite difficult. It really wasn't state of the art. Moving to Shul Cloud is going to give us a lot of flexibility and features we never had before. And a lot of risk mitigation, things that we are not specialists in, maintaining IT system is being done by someone else. So it really is a big improvement, and like I said, it's a real risk mitigator. When we talk about, our current budget for this past year, and, we were able to underrun, that has really helped our cash position. We are in a very solid cash position. Again, thinking about, having a pandemic, that having a cash cushion is just such a flexible, adaptable thing. And so that's just a great situation. And that cash position really is because we have had good financial control, but our membership has held steady. We're at 639 paying households. Again, with the pandemic, I think everyone was really concerned, would people still value a Herzl membership? And it has held very steady throughout the pandemic. We've been up and down on our student count in the congregation, the FRS. A lot of that, families just found Zoom a little difficult when it was Zoom only, but now that we've gotten back into in-person, the school year just ended, the numbers came up almost to where they were prior to the pandemic. And so that, again, is something I think people feel really good about, that when we can do in-person FRS, Herzl members really value that and send their students, and that's just, goodness. Next couple slides I'm going to move on to are talking about the budget. I'm going to split it up into sort of what's called non-program revenue and costs, which is essentially when you think about all the revenue, mainly coming from dues, but donations, and then the non-program costs, which are the clergy, the staff, a lot of the maintenance, sort of not specifically assigned items, but sort of the broad overhead of the congregation. Then we'll get into program costs. We try to raise revenue that's for the programs so that they're revenue neutral, but usually the past couple years it is a cost. And so basically the non-program revenue also covers a lot of the program costs. And then we'll talk a little bit about some of the initiatives that are sort of, one of them is related to the sort of overhead costs, and then two of them are extraordinary that are happening just this current budget, and we're not anticipating it going forward. So next slide, please. All right, so when we talk about non-program sort of revenue, the main thing we're talking about is dues. And because of the pandemic, the last couple years, we have held dues flat. We really are not been able to do that going forward. We are raising dues. It's across the board. Anyone and everyone knows the inflationary pressures that we're experiencing right now. We have tried to keep the dues increase something that is reasonable. For the standard membership, there's a 3% increase. We have what we call either enhanced or metal memberships, bronze through platinum. Those are going up a little bit more. And the net overall, compared to last year's budget, is a 7% increase. Again, that's pretty in line with inflation. And like I said, we have held dues flat the last couple years because of the pandemic. When we talk about other revenues in the budget, it's kind of a little bit of a misnomer. Our fundraiser, we're putting in the budget at 220, but essentially that's already in the bank. Essentially, we've already raised that. Prior year was 200. We had such a great annual appeal fundraiser. High holiday, we are keeping the same as in the past. We're not anticipating that's going to be raised. I'd love it if we got a bigger donation high holiday appeal time. That'd be great, but we're keeping that flat. And then costs, I'm not going to go into every item of costs. You can see it actually in the printout. I just want to hit a couple items. We are doing a cost of living increase for staff. They have been working really hard through this pandemic in a pretty challenging environment, again, both in and out of the office, and it is, cost of living increase and aligned with actually it's less than what we're seeing as local inflation. We are, during the pandemic, in order to be financially prudent and flexible, there were a number of open positions that weren't filled. With this new budget, we are actually adding another position for program clergy support. And then we have had some structural changes in that Elaine, who has been doing janitorial, fabulous job for many, many years to support the congregation, is retiring. And the decision was made that we are going to outsource the janitorial support. And so again, that will give us a little more flexibility, and it's a little bit of a savings, almost neutral, I would say. So when you sort of net the dues, revenue, and the cost, the non-net program, we actually have, for this particular item, a surplus. And I'll show at the end of this presentation a little bit of a financial view that'll kind of, you'll see this 109K again. It'll make it maybe a little easier when we get to that. So let's go to the next slide, please. So program costs. Again, in a perfect world, we would be we'd be neutral on programs, but essentially programs tend to actually be a cost. And you think about the biggest driver of the program cost is really the FRS school. Now, that is not a bad thing, right? I think we can all agree that how important FRS is to our congregation, how important education is to families of our congregation, how important education is to our Jewish community. However, having said that, we don't have as much financial flexibility with FRS as we do other areas of our budget. Really, the only real drivers that we have in the short term is increasing enrollment, and longer term, we're always thinking about, is there a way to restructure FRS? When we talk about the budget, last year's budget, we were at last year's was around 140, 141, the students. That's what we actually put into this year's budget, but we actually had 149 in actuals. So if the current actual student count stays for next year, that alone will actually improve a little bit of this deficit. Other program areas, from budget to budget, were pretty flat, some changes. Two things that come into mind, that the meals to go has been removed from this upcoming budget. However, before, Kiddish had stopped because we weren't in person. And so those are sort of offsetting to somewhat. And then the Scholar in Residence programs and some of the others, we had them as best we could in a COVID environment, right? We anticipate that we're going to have a little flexibility going forward, which is a good thing. We want to have more in-person programs. I think everyone, if nothing else, COVID has taught us just, how precious and valuable a sense of in-person community is. So as we go forward, we may have to maybe move some money around, because we really do want to emphasize Herzl in person for programs. So the net budget for this section, net program, is $124K, and that is a deficit. Go to the next slide, please. So I mentioned initiatives. One of the initiatives is that we're hiring a program coordinator for social media, outreach, expanded programming. Again, we had a number of positions we haven't filled in the last couple of budget cycles. This is one that the board's talked a lot about how, we have great things here at Herzl. We need to get the word out. We need to connect with all the unaffiliated, and when I say unaffiliated, not going to specific congregations, Jews in the Seattle area. And we're very hopeful that we get the right person, the right skill set, that this will really help us sort of get our message out there and, get more and more people involved in our community. This is within the labor portion of the non-program section of the budget. So this would be an ongoing thing. This position would get filled, and it'd be anticipated that next year's budget would also have this. Two initiatives that are extraordinary expenses in the sense that we're only anticipating them being in this year's budget are an assistant or associate rabbi search. And this is really dependent on long-term funding for that. Again, this is a lot of discussion at the board meeting that, we are a congregation of, 629, is that the 39, 639 paying households. As amazing as Rabbi Herber is, that's really taxing the clergy support. And also, we do have an older demographic, and, we can have planned events, and unfortunately, funerals, things like that happen. Rabbi needs to go. To have another rabbi on staff would provide a lot of flexibility, and it's really what our congregation has been asking for years. The challenge is finding that right person. And so it is in the budget for the search. We're asking for the flexibility for that. Before we would actually expend those funds, we would have to do some, the board would have to do some more planning on how we would actually fill that role. And we've also received some feedback that an assistant rabbi fresh out of school is not probably what would best serve our congregation. Our goal, and again, this has to be vetted a little more, would be maybe to get someone more like an associate rabbi, someone a little more senior who can, again, hit the ground running and meet the needs of our congregation. Another one-time item in here is strategic visioning. Mentioned before, we really do want to connect with our community. We're trying to really, identify really what is sort of the best strategy going forward, how we would accomplish that goal. And so there is some funding in here for that. So then when you sort of net everything together, the budget shows a $55K deficit. So if you can go to the next slide, please. So those lines I've highlighted here, you can see on the far right side, I guess I should walk you through. So the column that says budget 2021-22 is this year's projected. This was where we thought we were going to be at the time we actually sort of proposed and put together this year's proposed budget and started talking amongst the board. Things have actually improved. So if you go down to that bottom line, we had projected that we would be at negative 57K deficit at year end. We're probably going to be pretty close to break even, might even squeak by and be a little positive. And that has actually been, the last couple of years, our trend. We have really underrun our budgets. So yes, we are putting forward a 55K, deficit budget. If trends are like any of the previous years, if we can continue to do our good due diligence on financial controls, I think it's going to be less than that. This budget gives us some flexibility to sort of go after some initiatives and really kind of come out of the pandemic, really trying to accomplish some things that we've put on hold the last couple years. So let's go to the next slide, and then after that, I think when we come to questions, let's go back to the chart. All right. So we're asking you to vote on this budget. It has been submitted by the HNT Board of Directors. It has been approved by the directors for the congregation to vote on. We're things in this budget that are continue our transition to sort of our new normal, right? Our new normal is we want to be back in person, but we're continuing to do things like YouTube and Zoom where it makes sense. So it's giving our congregation the flexibility. It is an added expense to continue to do the Zoom, YouTube, but everyone understands, one of the things that we learned in this pandemic is that this technology does give you some flexibility and some choices, and we've heard that where it makes sense, we want to keep doing that. I talked about, this is something we've talked about for years, there's inherent financial challenges with the Franco-Religious School, right? We provide great top-notch education for our students, but it is a big commitment on the congregation, and it is costly. I didn't specifically spell it out in the words, but you can see it actually in the budget. I don't have to tell you, we have an older building. We're continuing to do maintenance on it. We're not doing maintenance, but we're not really attacking any sort of the really big items because we are, looking at some possible community partnering opportunities. We've been doing that the last couple of years, but things, are continuing going forward and seem pretty good that there may be a chance for that. At some point in a future budget, if we're not able to do that, we would probably in a future budget have to really talk about, okay, what would we do to the existing building if we're not going to make some of the big changes that a partnering might provide. And then I mentioned before about the search. It's more of an associate rabbi exploration. We really do need to sort of develop a little bit more of a plan and understand that more. Again, we are a stable congregation that is doing well coming out of this pandemic. A lot of other organizations have not survived the pandemic. That is not us. We have a good, solid cash position. And let's go back a slide. If you have any questions now, we can talk about it. Amy, can...
Wait, we need the microphone.
Yeah.
Ask you a question, you have to use the mic because they can't.
So I just have a few.
State your name.
Oh, I'm Amy Wasser. I have a few questions with regards to the budget. Thanks, Jeff. I appreciate it, and thanks, Ariane, for your work on it as well. So one of the questions that I have is that this year's high holiday appeal only brought in roughly $58,000, even though you budgeted for 85 or 80, and you're budgeting for 80 again. So I'm just curious what you think is going to change if the membership is remaining stable, why you think you're going to
Yeah.
be able to raise another, sort of $23,000 there.
Not to be flippant, but we got burned the last time around. We just didn't understand how to do a holiday appeal during a pandemic. And I think we've really, as a board, have taken lessons learned, and we understand better about what we need to do. The big thing is, in a non-pandemic, when you have a holiday appeal, the appeal card is part of your packet to get in, and it's very obvious. People are walking around with, the baskets, and it just, there's a cadence to it, right? We didn't understand the cadence that we needed to do in a virtual environment, and we now understand that we have to contact and really remind people, and like I said, it happened, and we had to do a lot of after the fact. That's not going to be the case going forward.
And then the other is on the expense side. In the publicity and marketing budget, you had budgeted in the current year $4,300. You spent $8,800, but now you've dropped the budget down to $1,800 for the coming year. So what's changed, and what won't you be doing?
Well, I think a couple things are going on, that we've gotten more and more electronic, not having to do as much the mass mailing, and Shul Cloud will actually give us some ability to do even more electronic items. Anyone else want to?
We also have some special projects that we tried to get done in this fiscal year that won't be recurring for next fiscal year.
Anyone else? Questions? All right, thank you.
One question from the YouTube chat.
Oh, yeah, sure. You can repeat it.
It was from Michael Levy, wants to know
Why house and utilities is 30%? Why house and utilities is off.
It's going from 194 to 260. Yeah, repeat the question and then answer it if you can.
Okay, so the question was about our housing utilities going up so much compared to last year. And part of that's just a shift of our maintenance costs from the personnel budget down to the house budget. So part of that increase is just the new outsourced maintenance staff, if that answers the question.
Did y'all hear that? Yeah.
I know, sorry.
I got it. So in our prior budget and prior actuals, a lot of our janitorial support was actually in the line that was personnel. That is now down in the line of house utilities and maintenance. That's essentially the addition of the janitorial outsource. So it's a shift.
So now you can clap for Jeff again. Thank you. That is huge. We often talk about something difficult being, diving into the deep end of the pool. And to come on board and be treasurer your first year is diving into the deep end of the pool from the high dive. So thank you, Jeff. Next up, we have immediate past president Zane Brown Jr., who will present the 2021-2022, no, that's what it says. This is from last year. The copy paste and I'll get updated. The 2022-2023 Slate and Nominating Committee. So Zane.
Okay, everybody. Sorry for the delay. I'm Zane Brown, your immediate past president for the next 5 minutes. Here are the nominations for the 2022 to 2023 board. First, the executive board for a one-year term. Reminder, the executive board all serves one-year terms, so we elect them every year. Sorry, I'm out of breath. President Mickey Friedman, Executive Vice President Aaron Kiviat, Treasurer, thank goodness again, Jeff Packer, Membership Vice President Michael Tarlow, Secretary Eileen Sloan, immediate past President Elise Wagner. Nominations to the 2022-23 Board of Directors for a two-year term, Adam Drucker, Amy Hartman, Jonathan Langman, Lindsay O'Neill, Sonny Putter, Jamie Slutsky, and Gail Weiner. Nominations to the 2022-23 Nominating Committee. Our bylaws require that we elect the nominating committee for the following year this year. So next year, Rachel Blum, Linda Jacobs, Martha Javnozen, and Nissim Newman. So all of those folks have agreed to serve. Many of you have already voted. We're so grateful that they've agreed and ready to give their time in the coming year. So cast your ballot. Thank you very much.
So thank you, Zane. And part of why Zane was doing that is one of the roles of the immediate past president is to chair the nominating committee. So Zane wasn't just presenting, Zane actually chaired the committee that filled the slate. So thank you very, very much. So the next thing on the list is a bylaw change. And you can look at it. It was printed out if you came here. It's online. There's a link to it. And what I'd like to do is just give an overview of what it is and why it is. So what we have seen during the pandemic, what's been great is that anyone can access HNT programs and services remotely. And we are open to everyone remotely, no membership required. However, as a way of providing connection, we would like to change what was previously the associate membership that in the bylaws was intended for people with a primary membership elsewhere, that they could become associate members. And what we'd really like to turn the associate membership into is people who live more than 100 miles away. We have seen people this past year who have moved and continued to stay connected and dialed in. We've seen people living in places without a synagogue who have really become part of our community. We see former congregants of Rabbi Herbert's who have followed him and dialed into our services. And we'd like to create an avenue for them to continue in membership and be part of our community. And so this is a membership that exists today. Like I said, and the only difference between what it is today and what it will be tomorrow is rather than it being you have a primary membership somewhere else, it's that you live more than 100 miles away. And to answer a couple of anticipated questions, we currently have 14 out-of-state members. They include former clergy. They all are on mitigated dues. So no one would, and we don't have any other, there are no associate members. That's what I meant to say. But there are these 14 out-of-state members. So we're not kicking anyone off membership by doing this. No one is in this category right now. We haven't been utilizing it, but we have been helping out our out-of-state members with mitigated dues. Another question that came up had to do with snowbirds. And one of the things I want to call out, there are a couple of things that really distinguish the associate membership from the standard membership. And that is, you don't have voting privileges, you can't send your kids to FRS, you don't have high holiday seating, although we honor guests the same way we always do, and you don't have member rates at the Herzl Memorial Park. So this is truly intended for those who aren't looking for the on-site services. So, any questions about the bylaw change? Okay, so. Repeat it.
I would just comment, having been on Minion with people who have Zoomed in for their own losses or yard sites or things and found a community on Zoom, that I think these new associate memberships would be really wonderful, that they could feel a part of the community.
Thank you. Thank you. I actually often cite the example of a man who the very first year of the pandemic lost his father and attended daily Minion from Alaska. Okay, so I'm going to explain what is going to happen for the rest of the meeting. Once again, if you're online and haven't put your name in the chat, please do so. It is now time to vote. You are voting basically yes or no on 5 things. They are the budget, the executive committee, the board of directors, the nominating committee, and the bylaws. And you can do this by going, if you haven't already, online through SchulCloud. There are links from the website. You can do that right now on your phone. I am going to talk while we tally the votes, but we also want to give a time when the voting closes. So it is right now 7:50. Oh, nice. The texts were very kind. They came in before and after Zane had my phone. The time is now 7:50. So let's give about 3 minutes for people to finish up voting, and then I will talk while we go and tally the votes. Yes. Oh, yes, okay. So the question was about the associate membership, if there is an option to be a dues-paying member and to have some of those services that I named that are not included in the associate membership? No, that wasn't it. Okay, sorry.
Like, if I live 100 miles away and I want to be an associate.
Oh, yes. There will be an associate member rate, yes. And it will be far below the standard rate. Yes, sorry.
I assume if wherever I live, I want to pay dues, I can pay dues.
Yes, everyone is always welcome to pay dues, and you could always pay more than is stated on the sheet in your membership packet. For the associate membership, there will be a nominal fee for dues, and what we're really trying to do is create that connection and give people a place to be a part of. So everyone is hopefully voting if you haven't already. I would strongly recommend just yes down the board. So while we are finishing that up, I am going to say a few words. Okay. So I wrote this afternoon. It's always a hard one because all I remember is David Ellenhorn's ode to Julie's parking spot. And you just can't outdo that. So here's what I came up with. So it's been about 30 years since my mom paved my way as the first female president of HNT. When I moved back to the area just a few years later, I was constantly asked if I was going to follow in her footsteps. I always laughed off the question, but I think I knew deep down inside that my time would come. That's what I knew, but here are a lot of different things I didn't know when I was thinking about taking on this role, some of which I couldn't have imagined. I didn't know we'd all be quarantining in our homes as part of a global pandemic. But I also didn't know that we'd have technology that would still allow us to interact with one another and participate in synagogue life and that it would forever change the way we're able to engage. I didn't know we'd be getting a new senior rabbi up to speed while he worked from home. But I also didn't know that people would open their back decks and garages to find creative ways to welcome him into the community. I didn't know we'd be hiring a new executive director after 30 years, but I also didn't know that we'd find a bright, experienced executive director looking to move across the country and round out our leadership team. And I have to say, working in partnership with Rabbi Herber and Meirav has been amazing. I didn't know the world would be struggling with poverty and displacement, but I also didn't know that our community would create drop-off and drive-by opportunities to help those in need, and that we'd continue to cook for those in shelters from our homes, even when we couldn't serve the meals. And actually, I expected nothing less on that one based on what we've always done as a community. I didn't know every single board meeting I led would be online, but I also didn't know that board members would step up and be fully engaged in such a way. In fact, we had some really substantive and thoughtful discussions despite the medium. And I want to acknowledge and thank, we have 4 people rolling off of the board this year. I have gifts for you that I'll give you afterwards. I have to show because I love these. This is the paperweight that looks like the stained glass window. So, want to thank Zane Brown, Marilyn Koretz, Mark Sandler, and Jody Sternoff. One of the exciting things with each of them rolling off is they've already told me there are other ways that they plan to stay engaged or get more engaged. So it's just goodbye from the board, but certainly not from synagogue leadership. I didn't know that we'd finally open up for a fabulous scholar in residence weekend, but I also didn't know the rush of emotion I would feel eating Shabbat dinner in the social hall with the congregation. I didn't know we'd be requiring vaccines to enter the building, but I also didn't know that we'd become a vaccination site, in addition to continuing to be a blood donation site. I didn't know my mom wouldn't be here to see me achieve all of this, but I also didn't know that her memory would be continually evoked by those around me, and that there would be an entire circle of past presidents lending me their support. And returning to what I do know, I know that our continued operations over the past 2 years are a testament to every staff member, every member of our board, every FRS teacher, every congregant, and everyone who participated in our services and programming from around the world. So a big thank you to every single person who had any type of interaction with HNT these past 2 years. I know that we have a great future ahead of us. We have incredible professional and lay leadership, and we are eager to continue our reopening and create more opportunities for our community. And I know that HNT holds an incredible place in my heart, and I am honored to have been able to serve as your president the last 2 years, and I'm not going anywhere. I look forward to continuing to serve the community and fulfill our current mission, which is one of connection. At HNT, we connect Jews to Judaism, to each other, and to the world. Oh, and if anyone wants to start a petition to get me a parking spot for the next 2 years because I didn't get a chance to really take advantage of mine, go for it. Okay, so the votes are in. Do I need to count all the numbers? I mean, do I need to call them out for Aaron for the? I think we all owe you a applause. Oh, thank you. Thank you. So, Executive Board, 122 in favor, 1 against. Someone wanted to keep me in this position. Board of Directors, oh, Mickey might have voted against. Board of Directors, 121 in favor, 1 against, 1 abstention. Nominating Committee, 122 in favor, 1 against. Bylaw Change, 120 in favor, 1 against, 2 abstentions. And the budget, 121 in favor, 2 abstentions. So we got a nice turnout in voting and everything passed. And with that, a huge thank you. And we've got a new president. Oh.
Hi, I'm Mickey Friedman. You may not know who I am, but you voted for me, and I was not the one person who voted against it. We do have a small token for you. I don't know how many of you are Harry Potter fans, but if you remember one, there we go, there we go.
Oh, Rachel's got the Harry Potter shirt going on.
So in one of the episodes, you could probably tell this better than I. Hermione, is that how you pronounce Hermione? She has this incredible, I don't know what she was given, but she has the ability to be in 2 places at once. And there we go.
Time Turner.
Time Turner. Somehow she managed to give it to Elise. Because I've been on the board with her for 6 years, and the last 2 years have been incredible because every committee, basically everything that happens, she has been there and she's been involved in this. And she also said she has a full-time job. And I don't know how that happened, but it's incredible. And it's, you know what, the best thing to do is this is also unusual. I'm going to actually open up your thank you note and read it without my glasses. Dear Elise, you have been an amazing leader and friend to Herzl-Ner Tamid. During the most challenging of times, the pandemic, orienting a new rabbi and executive director, and trying to maintain some semblance of normalcy while managing change, you led us with wisdom, humor, and great judgment. We appreciate all you have done and continue to do. Yasher Koach, and thank you. The Herzl-Ner Tamid Board, congregation, clergy, and staff.
Thank you. Thank you.
And if you like this, I picked it out. If you didn't, Marav did it.
Okay, thank you so much. And thank you to everyone for being here. And we look forward to seeing more of you. A few announcements, things coming up. Friday night is our first return to Rhythm and Jews. For those of you with teenagers, Thursday night via Zoom is USY elections. And finally coming back in person after this is going to be exciting for the teens, and I encourage everyone to get their teens on Zoom to be a part of that. And June 4th, that evening, we have services, dinner, and a study session. I may have gotten the order wrong, for Shavuos, which is that first few days in June. So, thank you. And the meeting is now adjourned.